So to catch everyone else up, I've gave a talk about GitHub Actions and continuous delivery like 3 years in a row here. For some reason, it was cached in the spreadsheet. I am more than happy to give a GitHub Actions talk. I haven't worked there in 3 years, but I will show you GitHub Actions in this talk. This talk is actually AI. This is the ML room, the AI room, so this will be an AI talk. So I wanted to make that very clear on the sign with my poor penmanship. So if you wanted to learn about GitHub Actions, ask questions about it, and I'll tell you everything. I joined GitHub in 2018. February was like the first month that we could test out Project Everett, and so I know Actions very well. I left in 2022 though. Actions is basically the same since, but I work at an AI company called Continue. Sorry, this is not the talk. I'm sort of rambling to prep people who, if you wanted to jump ship to another place, you could. But I work at this company called Continue, which is an open source coding agent, and I will be showing that quite a bit in this talk. So if you're interested in open source and AI, this will not be vibe coding, but there will be vibes. Excellent, all right, feeling the room. Cool, for those who came early, anybody have questions at all? Any confusion? So I'm unfiltered. I used to have this joke. I ran a company for 2 years. That's why I left GitHub. And I used to call it B-Dougie offline. So before the camera hits record, I'm this unfiltered, whatever you want to know. Nope. You're a loss. Yeah. We'll get started in 2 minutes. It looks like some people are sort of still navigating through. And I'll have some live demos in here, so I'm more than happy for you to raise your hand and ask questions, interrupt me. I don't actually watch the recordings of my talks, so I'm not sure how it's going to come out, but I think if you took the time to stick around and be here, even though I told you you might be in the wrong talk, this is your time, so you can ask whatever you want. All right, 1 minute. Oh, Matt, question. What am I excited about working on next? That's a good question. I am excited. So I run developer experience at Continue, so we're like a small 2-person team. Company's 9 people. And what I'm excited about next is what I'm going to show you, which literally shipped yesterday. Not intentionally. So my talk's kind of going to be a bit more freeform when I show you that stuff. But it's actually leveraging AI, but not for the vibe side. It's actually amplifying and extending what you could do. So I mentioned this morning, I spent all summer doing data science and data engineering. And I know enough to read books, but I've never actually implemented that stuff myself. And what AI's really got me unlocked is that I can be a bit dangerous in that space. And I've been enjoying it. I've been writing code since 2013, so that's at 12 years. I thought I was going to run out of time, but part of my story is my son was born 12 years ago, and he was early. We were in the hospital for 11 weeks. In those 11 weeks, I learned how to code. And that's been my entire intro to open source was that someone wrote a blog post, and I got to be unblocked to build my little side project. So my entire mantra is I love teaching people how to Dougie, which is me. Cool, we're gonna start now. So thank you so much for coming to this talk. It's funny because usually I'm I live in Oakland, California, so I usually cut out the second day around the afternoon because the only direct flight back to San Francisco is 5:30. So this is the time I would be heading back to the airport, but I was speaking the second day, so I'm here to hang out with you guys. So I do appreciate you coming through. I'm gonna talk about continuous AI. Continuous AI is something that was a blog post on GitHub Next. GitHub Next is the team inside of GitHub that gave us Copilot and a bunch of other cool things. Some things that haven't shipped, some things that will ship, but it's forward-thinking GitHub. I don't think I ever mentioned this in my talk, but I spent 5 years at GitHub between 2018 and 2022. The end of 2022, beginning of 2018, so almost 5 years. and got to see a lot of things ship, including Copilot. So I was part of the launch squad in Copilot, so if you really got some time on your hands and this talk gets boring, like first Copilot video ever is me. I actually made it at 12 a.m. The launch, because I realized we had no demos of Copilot. So I was the one that said, convert your comments to code, and then everyone ran with it. That was not how you're supposed to use AI, but I didn't know any better. So these are best practices. Raise your hand if you use AI to code. Excellent, all right, everyone's over the hump, most of us. Raise your hand if you use AI to code at work. Okay, some people dropped off. I won't tell if you mention it. Cool, so we're all kind of familiar with AI. Like, yell out what AI tools you use. Like, you got Copilot people? Cool, Cursor? What's another one? What is it? Windsurf, yeah, I forgot about them, yeah. Still around. Continue is where I work. We're actually bigger in the open source and enterprise, so like we don't kind of fit in that middle spot, but it's cool. There's a couple other ones, like Aider and Augment and Klein and RuCode, and yeah, there's a bunch of them. There's a lot of them. I want to talk about best practices. So get this out of the way. I'm B. Dougie. I go by Brian Douglas, but people who really like hanging out with me call me B. Dougie. I'm B. Dougie on GitHub, and at GitHub they only call me B. Dougie, so it just kind of stuck. It was like high school football, I was Dougie, and then GitHub, I was Dougie, and everywhere in between I was Brian. But I just continue that. So everywhere on socials, if you want to like hit me up, I do answer DMs. Happy to chat. But yeah, the search chat, you'll find me. I mentioned my story a little bit, and I was going to mention this morning, but I only had 12 minutes. I learned how to code, and this is my journey. On the GitHub Readme project, I got to kick off this thing at GitHub. It's a podcast, it's a blog series, still around. And I shared my story where my son was born at 19 weeks, so it's like very, very early, might go preemie. And I'm from Tampa, but I'm from the suburbs of Tampa. You can hear my accent. I'm just kidding. So anyway, my son had to be basically driven in an ambulance all the way to Tampa. So we were about 25 miles from the house, and that's where I learned how to code, because I had this idea to find a church in Tampa. So when we're in the hospital every day, so like Sundays, like we should do something that's not in the hospital. So we tried to find churches in 2013, couldn't happen because Yelp wasn't a thing for churches. I think Lifeway has like a cool app for do that. But I built an app that basically Yelp for churches. That was basically the thing, the dream. Built it, kind of did something with it, but then I ended up getting a job writing code, because if you could spell Rails, you would get a job in 2013. It was a different time. So that's my journey. It's on the internet, and I've given a lot of I was like episode 2 at Code Newbies, so like my story is there in full form, and I've done some other follow-ups, and so feel free to catch that up. But I'm going to talk about continuous AI, and continuous AI is again, for those who were here earlier, GitHub Next did a blog post about continuous AI, and we know continuous AI, we know continuous CI and CD, which his talk originally was continuous delivery with GitHub Actions, and so that's like a given. Like if you run your tests manually every single time, you should probably automate that on Actions or something similar. But now we have this new thing with like AI, where a lot of us are like, we had a hand raised of like Copilot and stuff like that. Anybody using Jules? Have you tried it? We got one. Anybody using like background agents? Just let it fly? Yeah. So we're going to talk a bit about that stuff as well. But this is like the opportunity for us to like set it and forget it, or let it deploy. I might be showing my age. I know I look good for my age, but I am older. But yeah, so that's what we're going to cover. So the opportunity to find continuous AI workflows and automate those pieces. So we're going to catch people up because we might not all be on the same page, and I love setting the tone. So within the idea of continuous AI, or just AI in general, we got models, we got rules, and we got tools. Models are kind of a given. We got OpenAIs, and we got Anthropic. These are foundational models, and there's also small ones. There's like Olama. Like you can also do OpenAIs like GPT, OSS. Just understand, models are like the large language models that we can sort of input stuff, and we like pull the slot machine, and stuff comes back out. The way to like have deterministic output is by having things like rules and tools. So rules are basically your system prompts. So like you're like typing a prompt, as a senior engineer, I want you to write code with no bugs. And that's your prompt. That's your rule. And you can actually set rules so you don't have to say that every single time. So what I like to do is like set up rules so I can just drop in a GitHub issue, and then the agent just goes off and does the thing. But it has rules on how the code works, has rules on how to interact with the team, expectations on like TypeScript and all this other stuff. So those are rules. I'll get into more. And then like tools are basically, sorry, I explained a bit too much, but the reason why there's fire there is like rules are basically stove is hot, don't touch it. Like you learn very quick when you touch a hot stove. I've got an 11-month-old, and she always likes to grab my coffee cup, and I'm just like, hey, no, it's hot, 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 hot. And she does not remember because 11-month-olds have smaller brains. So she'll touch it, like, oh, why'd you do that to me? It's like, it's hot, don't touch it. So she gets it now. Sorry, I swear I'm a good parent. But you know, I'm just holding her in the coffee, and coffee's hot. I want hot coffee. So tools are basically, Angie Jones is sitting on the stage, or standing on the stage, talking about MCP yesterday at the same time. MCP you can kind of think of as your tools. These are your APIs that can talk to agents. Cool. Here's an example. So we got this like LLM, this little robot here, and we have a prompt. So like we want a prompt that basically is, oh, I went backwards. I'll say build me an app. And like the output is an appetizer, because I wasn't specific. If I went like ChatGPT, I'm like, oh, I want apps. And it's like, cool, well, Applebee's has apps, Chili's has apps. Is that what you meant? And like you have to set up the rule to say, no, you're a senior developer. This is code. I want an app. So then the output becomes you get an app. So you guys tracking with me on like what we're explaining? So like we just set the context of like what we're trying to do. So like we go from like vibe coding to like context engineering, which is like another buzzword. We're never-ending buzzwords in AI right now. So to understand this, like rules make good MCP experiences. They make them great, basically. I was talking to Sneak, we're a partner of Sneak for Continue, and 90% of the good experience that happens in their MCP, but from rules. So you set up a rule and say like, hey, when you go look for vulnerabilities, like this is a Python app. Don't look for C++ vulnerabilities. And it sounds like dumb, but agents are dumb. So you gotta think, hey, if this was a junior engineer on my team, what would be needed for them to be successful off the bat? So we just changed the mind frame of like slot machine, chat, like fix this thing. Because a lot of the like, I'm on Threads and Blue Sky and the X Twitter thing, and like you see a lot of the naysayers around AI, and it's like, hey, it's not ready for prime time. And in reality, it is ready for prime time. It's just like maybe a lot of the poor practices you have as an engineer. Sorry, this is like a big of a dig. But like if you don't write documentation, you're gonna have a bad time with AI. If you don't review code, you're gonna have a bad time with AI. Like if you don't have good experiences as an engineer and have good practices, like AI is not gonna solve any of those things. But if you came in with like, I expect documentation, or I expect the AI to read it, you're gonna have a good time. So there was a tweet actually where folks were asking about GTP5 and Sonnet 4 and like what people are using. At this point, Sonnet 4.5's out. The question is like, at what point can AI really think? Like, or when do we get AGI? When like this autonomous agents going through my code and having self-healing infrastructure that bugs happen, but they get fixed before I wake up. We're close. Like we're close in the sense of like 15 years close. But we're close in the sense that like we have the building blocks to get there. We just need better practices as engineers to help automate the things that we don't want to do. So these are all the foundational models that I'd mentioned before. There's another concept of small language models, which I think is really cool. So Granite, IBM, shout out to IBM as a sponsor. They shipped a small model that runs on your phone that doesn't make it go hot. I should probably know what it was. It's like Nano, Granite 4 Nano. Yeah, it's super worth like checking out if you wanted to do something that looks at your text messages as like a small app, but it's all local on the device. So you never send it off to the cloud. You never send it off to OpenAI to train on your data. And that's the thing that I mentioned, the Continue. Like that's where we operate in is like you own the data. We're not training and selling your data for the purpose of VC money. So I wrote this blog post called The Anatomy of Rules, and I wrote it around like the idea of I was getting back into writing Ruby code. I'd not written Ruby code for quite some years, like since before I was in like early days of my GitHub tenure, and I was just catching up on like what was the newest way of doing things in Ruby. Turns out most of it's the same, but I just wanted to write like bespoke but pure, clean Ruby functions and stuff like that, or methods. And so I wrote a bunch of rules of like I just took the TDD and Ruby book. So I wanted test-driven development, and then I wanted to clean Ruby, and I just dropped it into a prompt and was like, generate me rules based on this structure. So I want to write clean Ruby, but I want directed in structure and that I can hand over my agent. And I use this as like, again, I have a baby, but this example is like when you send your agent off to do things or you talk in the prompts and you don't provide rules, it's like giving a baby a Sharpie or a toddler a Sharpie in a museum. Like, they will write on the walls. Like, okay, my kids will write on the walls. I don't want to speak bad about your kids, but like, you got to set up rules like, hey, the Sharpie's only for, or don't give a Sharpie to baby, what are you doing? But if you give them the Sharpie, just tell them like, no, this is specifically for this situation. Don't go Sharpie everything. And this is like the thing that happened with Replit a couple months ago where they dropped the database, the production database, because in testing, it's cool to like drop the database over and over again and like run the tests. But the agent didn't know it was in a production environment. It just knew, oh, we drop databases when we need to restart. So I talked about MCP. I then wanted to quickly talk about what we put together, which are cookbooks. And this is something, who's actually run MCP? Not just installed it, but like gave it a prompt and did a thing. Yeah, the problem we have right now in this industry is like MCP is 11 months old. It didn't quite work until January of this year, and it really didn't have any good use cases until like April, May. But now we're accelerating at this point. But you go into any of these docs, and it's like how to install it. And like, it's cool to install MCP, but it's even cooler to use them. And most docs don't include like, oh, this is what you would actually use it for. So we built all these cookbooks, and this is really because I was kind of annoyed that everyone would ship an MCP. Like, we have an MCP, that's the announcement. They're like, okay, what are you doing with it? So who does PostHog? PostHog's like kind of like Google Analytics, open source Google Analytics. It's like for PLG, so product-led growth. If you like go through your sign up and sign up is broken, like as an engineer, it'd be like, oh, just write a test or whatever. But a lot of times you can actually track this stuff specifically in your app and get reports or session recordings of like people just fumbling. It's all GDPR compliant, it's all anonymous, but you'll get session recordings, but you might get like a 5-minute session recording. Who's watching that? Like, I'm not watching that stuff. Are you digging through logs every morning and be like, hey, let's just see how the thing's running? Some people like get a kick out of it, I don't. So what I did is I built an MCP cookbook to basically use PostHog's MCP to take session recordings, which video, I spent a lot of time playing around with video. It's better to take a screenshot. It's expensive to look at the whole video. So take a screenshot, a couple screenshots, and then use natural language to describe what's in the screenshot, and then open up GitHub issues based on either success or failure of people going through your app. And like, this is like, it's a paved path. It's right here in this MCP cookbook. It wasn't in PostHog's documentation. And I mentioned this because there's a lot of MCPs that need blog posts, that need content, that is like there for the grabs. So if you have a weekend to punish yourself and go through some docs on MCP, I do highly recommend it because it's very rewarding to get something out there and having people unblock. And I'll go into some details as well. I'll get into a demo in a second. But so continue, we have a CLI, we have a VS Code extension, JetBrains extension. We have a UI as well, like on the web. And this is our CLI specifically, and this is me just setting up Claude Opus specifically to use the PostHog MCP. So it kind of looks like this, and the way that we work and continue is we have a couple different concepts, and this is the point where I'll just start going into freeform and showing you off continue. So in continue, we do have models, rules, and tools, and prompts that are shareable. So think of it as like a marketplace for things that you can just like plug and play. And then the way this works is like you have these configs that I have a project, where is it? Oh, this is the project I was talking about on stage. So like I have models that are specifically in my agent, in my config for my agent, that I share with all my contributors for my project. So if you ever wanted to contribute info, and you want to use an agent, you don't have to. You have access to basically contribute with these MCPs. I don't have any rules. I probably should have rules, but the thing is, it's actually open source, so all my rules are in my repo, to be quite honest. And they look like this in the .continue folder. So if you use Cursor or Claude or .github, it's very similar to that setup, where I have all these rules on like how to write docs. So I have a rule on copywriting. So keep it clear and concise. Like break up your paragraphs. Like no one's going to read all that. Make it useful. And then what I do is I end up just like dropping my docs into, or sorry, I get the agent at PR time. Sorry, I don't have this cached. I'm in the wrong browser. I have this all basically at PR time. I'm like, hey, great job on building the feature. Could you scaffold me out some docs? did I spell it wrong? Oh, there it is. So then I have like docs on like all the different features of my project. I should have images. I haven't done that yet, so I'll do that hopefully this weekend. But I just explain the product, and then I just have documentation in a way that can be grokked by the agent or by a human. So I say all that because like what we really focus on is like the building blocks of building agents, but I'll show you why in a moment. So going back to this, continuous AI workflows, if you know about CI/CD, you push to GitHub, test run, deploy happens, magical, everything works. And you don't have to think about, like back in the day, I used to have to get my the DevOps guy, and he literally was in a closet, and be like, hey, PR is up, could you like set it up for staging? And be like, cool. And be like, the whole day would go by, and be like, hey, could you put down the Doritos, and could you just put this up on staging so we can get this reviewed before the end of the day? And now we like have a world where reviews just happen on PR. Like we don't have to think about it. And I think what I'm trying to pitch is like, we could have agents to do bespoke use cases and features or different parts of your stack that they do very well at. And I'll get into like what well is and like what's okay. But the idea is like you trigger an agent and then you get an outcome. But the agent could spin multiple times. You could have an agent talk to agent and this will get complicated. But it looks like this. So post-hog, you take the session data. So we're starting left to right, starting with the robot. And then you fetch through the MCP, you fetch the session, and then you summarize the session data using the model, whatever model you choose. At this point in the cookbook, this is where we actually get you to open up a GitHub issue based on the session recording. So we do have a couple sample repos that we'll probably put up in the docs pretty soon. So right now you kind of have to bring your own data, but soon we'll have sample repos where you can run this yourself without signing up to PostHog and everything like that. So. And then at that point, you can assign the agent to work. So if it's like small enough that it could be tackled, you can just like kick it off and like see what happens. And then what I love is actually, I know CodeRabbit and Codo are here as sponsors. I've actually been building my own review bots as like a fun weekend stuff. And what I like about it is like, okay, so we're amongst friends, right? CodeRabbit had an issue with security. So I'm like, do you really want to send all your code in the world and everything to like a box and then have it spit out some like responses? So I've been experimenting like, what if you could own all that data and all your review data? So like every time a review happens, you have this like captain's log of like, this is what happened on February 25th. And you can always scroll back because like, I'm not a fan of people walking into my code base and be like, why did you make it this way? Or why didn't you do that? Or why did you make this decision? Like at GitHub, we had, I remember I was part of was part of the team, but when I joined, it was like one of the last PRs that was merged to remove all jQuery. And it's like one of those decisions where I was like, GitHub had so many users, they're not going to remove jQuery overnight. Like the opportunity was there eventually to build a momentum and like get jQuery out to site. They have the opposite problem because now everything's a React. But anyway, so basically this is like our continuous AI workflow, and this is the point where I start doing a demo. Okay, cool. So I mentioned I have this like project called contribute info, and I'll show you this in like we'll start top down. So this be like more of a party favor. Sorry, it's like more of a magic trick. So I've got this thing where like I can go into contribute.info and I'm like, cool, just like some charts and graphs, and like it works, and it works, and it works. Okay. Well, it looks like there's an error. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just grab this error message, and I'll just go wholesale and go into CN, and I'll just go crazy on main. I'm just kidding, I'm gonna create a branch. So what I like to do is like keep all context as I'm working in the agent. So I kick out the agent, but I'm like, oh, I'm on main. So just in natural language be like, oh, hey, actually I won't say hey. Make a branch for this error. And the cool thing about it is you could spell wrong and the agent will not complain. Cool, so like, a lot of times what I'll do is like, I just want to make sure I'm not on main, I'm pulling the latest. A lot of that sort of get up, check out, pull, push, merge, dance, and stuff like that. It's fun. Like, it's all muscle memory for me. But sometimes I just don't want to clone the repo, or I don't want to check out the branch or fetch from origin or whatever. And I just want to like create a branch and then start experimenting and see what's going on and like start navigating through the repo. So depending on the internet, this could take a second. It shouldn't take that long. Say what? Light mode, yes. Yeah, sorry, thanks for calling that out. There's dark mode. How do you search this? Appearance. Light. There we go. Wow, you guys are struggling. But you know what? I'll have to restart Ghosty. Yeah, I'll have to restart it. I have no idea how to like set, oh, I have to set this theme manually. Maybe I'll just use terminal, because I can do that faster. Ghosty's got like a weird setting. No, that didn't work. That's not viewable. How do we do this? That is better? Man. Wait, that's a light mode? Oh, you know what? I can just take out the theme. There we go. Okay, that might be slightly better, and we'll enhance. Cool. Is that viewable? It's like, it's gray, yeah. Create a branch for this. And you know what I'll do is I'll have this run rather than, we'll watch this and we'll move on to the next thing. So I've got this, I got this issue, and then keep me honest too as well on this. Is this also super dark? Cool, so I don't know, I don't think it looks as good. I didn't spend as much time on the light mode, so I'm a bit embarrassed, so please don't tell me how bad it looks. But basically what I wanted, this looks awful. Yeah, vibe coding. All right, so basically I see this thing and like I'm creating a branch, but that's gonna take a second. So what would be cool if like, I've actually, I wanted to change this for a long time, but I'm like, I'm not gonna change this until I get in the conference. We have 17 minutes. Cool, so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to clone, and what I want is actually, this is the notification bar, but I think it's kind of dumb that this is an email and not a notification bell. So I'm like, wouldn't it be cool to like, just take that and just change that to a notification bell? So what I was gonna show about the sort of continuous AI workflows is, I've got this project here, and this is continuous, so we actually shipped this yesterday. So I figured like, why not YOLO and do this thing? So the idea is like, I already have my agent, I already have all my models, I already have all the context of how I write code. What if I just like threw this up on a URL, and what this does in the background, it uses run loop as a container. So just replace that to a VM of anything else, but that's what we use. So I have problems with the notifications. Actually, that's too much. Change the notif icon to an alert. What do you call it? Notification bell? What's that called? Notification bell. Instead, oh man, of email. Cool, I think we got that. Looking good. So I'm just gonna shoot this off. And the way this works is like, I've got a bunch of these agents, so I'm gonna, yeah, it's gonna be PR status. It's gonna basically just take all that context of what I was showing in all those little blocks and bloops, and it's gonna run the agent. So, and it's gonna run the agent, I promise. Oh, somehow I got into continue, okay. That's my, if I start shipping stuff for the team, it's gonna look awkward. Something was cached. Let me go back to PR status. Oh, here we go. So no PR. So let me click into this. And then what we'll have is no chat history available. They warned me this might happen. So it looks like it's not working. So I'm gonna actually, ideally what would happen is that I would get a chat history, and we'll pick another one where I had like a bunch of console logs, and would like output a bunch of stuff. And then eventually I would just get a PR. But because the team got very zealous in like building stuff, because they just like shipping, they broke it. So I should have checked my Slack to see if they told me, don't do this. They said they're done. Maybe I've just got to clear the cache. Man, who's watching Netflix? Like, why is this so slow? I'm just kidding. Cool, and oh, there it is. Oh, no, that's the same one. I'm looking at the wrong one. Going back to agents. No chat history, no diff. Cool, I'll just do it local, but I promise you that would have worked. Trust me, it would have been really cool. So did I create a new branch? It told me to create a branch. Create a branch. I'll just do this. So we have like this little like escape hatch if you do the exclamation point. I think Claude Code and Codex have this, which is this like get checkout b no diff bell. So this is just me using no AI, just create the branch. Let's just get over this. Cool. So I have the screenshot. Oh, actually, that's cool. It's like I can actually drop the screenshot as a URL from Dropbox because I've got that built into my my setup, and then I can't get the prompt, so I'll just go back to just type it out. Change the icon to a notification bell from email icon. Sometimes specificity is needed. But this will basically just give me the same experience if I was using this in UI. The nice thing about using the UI is like I do a 25-minute bus ride to San Francisco from Oakland every day, and I like creating a bunch of issues and just dropping in them and seeing it fix it. So I'm gonna let that run, and let me just do it full screen. The thing I was gonna show as well is I also created a GitHub issue on this. And the best part about this is like, a lot of this is like, this is my keynote this morning, is like, we don't have enough context and breadcrumbs for the AI to be successful. So what I usually just do is have the AI just generate an issue based on the problem that I saw. And what's cool about this, I don't have to fix it, like the team member can grab it, but if I'm on the bus ride to work, I can be like, oh, never got done. Let me assign it to agent. So I'll even like show like Copilot does this also for free within the GitHub, you assign it to agent. I've had poor experiences with Copilot, and as of late, so I just don't use it anymore. But shout out to the team. If you're listening, please fix that. Oh, sorry, was someone responding to that? Yeah, so basically I could see your home directory, screenshot appears from the web application, project folder. Oh, why don't you look at the code? Why don't you look at the repo view component? Oh, yeah, it's actually header. And what's good about this is like I'm vibe coding, but also I kind of know what the component's called. I know the shape of where like things are found. So what's cool about this is like there's going to be like this web search, or if you need the web search, but it's going to look specifically for these two components that live in my app. If I wanted to open up like a Z, I could also like see that happen live and see all the changes happening. And that's kind of how we've like. It's funny, I'm getting a phone call. It's funny that, sorry, that's not funny. What I'm getting at is like we're moving into a place where like if you have trust in like your rules, your tools, and like everything that you built around the agent, you should be as comfortable enough to say, hey, change the icon. Because in my project, I have documentation very clearly on we use icons this way. I have a very poor performance score right now, but I was at 100 up until like 6 weeks ago. And then I started building a bunch of other stuff that made that less. But the way I do icons, like everything's in SVG, it's all set up in a folder. We source from a place where we convert those local, and I say we, me and my agents. And I'll say like, the royal we. Because this is literally all my contributors for this project all summer. So I'm just like, I use all of them at this point, because like, why not? They're there for you, and I think for having like a side project and an opportunity to like test things out, build like a little demo project, which I have here. Sorry, we'll go back to the agent in a second. So cool, so I got this demo project, and the idea here is I've got a bunch of prompts in this repo that I was meant to just drop into the hub agent. So we'll give it another try. I think we cleared the cache. And I think it might have, it might have actually went to the wrong project. So I might have been looking in the wrong thing. So I've got like some manufactured errors inside this demo project. So the idea is, we'll give this one last try, is that we should see the thing get kicked off, and we should see a chat history and nothing. Oh yeah, that looks like a real error. Yeah, so usually what I just do is I just copy all the console, and then I go back to the agent, and I'm not even joking. I'll just actually open an issue based on this. So unfortunately, I can't actually show you the working, so the magic is not going to work. But ideally, it's like we have a setup for the continue repo, and then I could actually create a linear issue. So like we have predetermined workflows specifically for these agents. For our team's been testing this for a week, so it's still pretty fresh. But you can see the UI is pretty fresh because you can't read it. But I would ideally just drop in that error message using the prompt to create a linear issue and then fire that off. But I know that's not going to work because we tried it twice and it didn't work. But yeah, that's continuous AI. I will say that the notification bell looks like it is working, so we might be 1 for 3 here. So I will npm run dev. Ooh, what happened there? How am I not in the, oh, I see what happened. I gotta go in the repo. Ooh, that can't be good. I might have wrote code in the home directory. Y'all didn't call that out? I created a repo called notification bell. So, hey, you work with agents, you get burned. What folder are you in? Oh, you know what? I can just do info. Duh. So what's cool about Continue is because we're open source first and we work with enterprises, all your data is local in your machine in your .continue. So if you do .info, you actually get context not only on this and where I'm at. So I'm currently in, that's my session file. This is, yeah, so it looks like I called all this stuff in the root. That's why it wasn't working. That's weird. But basically, I have got all that context. If I wanted to, I can go to like the session and look at the sessions from previously inside that .continue folder, and I can debug it there. But we're gonna try this one more time. This is supposed to be a short demo, and I've hit every single edge case at this point. Cool. The cool thing is I can just run the same prompt from the main branch, because like we're not gonna push this up, we're just gonna run it local. Cool. It probably is gonna ask again on where to look in the repo, so I'm just gonna like prime it to basically look in those two components. And then I've got 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna just rush through the remainder of my talk. So we've got cookbooks specifically. If you wanted to run this like yourself, there is documentation out there around MCP. But when it comes to like these asynchronous agent workflows, there's not a lot out there. I think a lot of folks just do like the vibe coding thing or build me an app that looks like this, like the Lovable or the Bolt.news. But what I'd love to see is more people really bring in agentic workflows into their like actual engineering best practices. But you can't get there overnight. You can't just be like, it's gonna fix all the bugs all the time. Like that's not the world we're in today. But when you set yourself up for success by writing good PRs, descriptions, opening issues, documentation, all that stuff becomes so much easier. So what I was gonna say, models, rules, and tools, it really is just, it's agents at the end of the day. And like what Continue does is we build custom agents. We help you build custom agents. We don't build them for you. But we provide all these sort of entry points for you to like deploy this either for you or your team or just keep it on your machine on an airplane. I did a YouTube video where I didn't ship it. I went to Nigeria and I coded for like 12 hours straight, offline. So like that's the world we're in. Like we don't have to send stuff off to someone else's server. You can just run local. I didn't run any local models because they all run pretty hot on my machine. And I've done that multiple times and it just like, it will stall out if you're running like HDMI and running Keynote and all this other stuff. So, so like my pitch to you is like start thinking like a engineering best practices. Like a lot of folks never use project boards all the time on GitHub. Like if you use Jira, Linear, whatever. But like all that stuff is going to be super helpful. And I would also say like for folks who are sort of struggling into like finding your first job, your next job, or trying to break in. I have a friend who's like been engineering for as long as I have, but just doesn't live in San Francisco, doesn't have all the best practices in like engineering. He's got to like relearn all that stuff. And what I've been saying is like the best thing you could do is like read books on like algorithms, architectural design, like all that stuff you'd have to prompt back and forth to the agent. It's super helpful today. Sorry, there's a Reddit about AI memory, so I didn't get into this, but I talked about the session data. So like storing memory to like pull the cache and like having a context of like what you're actually trying to accomplish. Continues open source, 29,000 stars I guess today. So like and subscribe or whatever you guys do on GitHub. And then I did want to mention amplify.dev. So we actually do really believe in this. Like, we're here to amplify developers. We're not meant to replace anybody. So the only way we do that is by showing demos that work. So apologies on that. And then I will finally, I am in the right repo. This repo is not right. But I will run it, and we'll see if the notification bell works. And I'm going to go out on a limb, and I think, oh, the server's not running. And I have to log in, and it didn't work. What'd you do? And this is when you start yelling at the agent. Cool. Oh, it probably asked me questions, which is great that it asks clarifying questions. Oh, that's what it did. Change. This actually works. Change the icon. So basically what I'm reading is it basically read all the code and then told me what it learned, but it didn't do the thing, like a perfect junior engineer. So we can see it's actually changed. Wait, it did change the bell. Where did it change it? It changed it to a share icon, but this is what folder? Repo view. Whoa, hold on. Oh, you know what it is? No, it's not there. What? See, this is when I actually have to open up the code and figure out where it actually changed it. So sometimes I'm like, create a draft PR if I wanted to look at the code, or I'll open up VS Code. But it did change it, so it did work. It just changed it somewhere else. And that's literally the right file. So maybe I should be in localhost 5174. No, that's not on. Anyway, hey, demos, right? Cool. I'm B. Dougie. I'm actually here to chat. I do have videos of this actually working on the internet, so check out my latest video I published on YouTube yesterday. Also on LinkedIn, I've got a video, same video. So if you don't want to use YouTube, like, find me on LinkedIn. But it did work on the demo, and then I'll do another demo probably tomorrow when I yell at the team for shipping stuff before I got on stage. Cool. Thanks so much. Enjoy the show.